Sophia wiped the sweat off her forehead as she stirred the pot of rice. The aroma of the rich tomato stew filled their small apartment, and she smiled. She loved cooking for her husband David. No matter how hard things were, she always made sure he ate well. Their one-bedroom apartment was tiny, but it was full of love. At least, that was what she believed. She and David had built everything together from scratch. They had met in university when David was still struggling, borrowing money for transport and eating garri without sugar. She had stood by him, supported him, and even worked 2 jobs to help him start his business. David walked in, his white shirt stained with sweat. "Babe, I swear Lagos traffic will be the death of me," he sighed, dropping his bag on the chair. Sophia laughed, walking to him. "Welcome, my love, food is ready." She pecked his cheek and pulled him towards the small dining table. David sat down and rubbed his hands together. "My wife, the best cook. I can't wait to be rich so you won't have to stress yourself like this. One day, you will have maids cooking for you while you relax like a queen." Sophia smiled. "I don't mind doing this as long as we are together." He reached for her hand, "And we will always be." Soon, David's business began to grow. The small company they started in their apartment expanded into a real office. Money started coming in, but with that, it came with changes. At first, the changes were small. David started buying expensive clothes, perfumes, and wristwatches. Then, he stopped coming home early. "David, are you okay?" Sophia asked one night as he returned home at 1 a.m. He yawned and waved her off. "Walk, walk, walk. I have to keep up with the competition." Sophia nodded, but something did not feel right. The real change happened when he bought his first car. Suddenly, David was no longer the loving husband who held her hand in public. He became distant, spending more time with his new friends, drinking and staying out late. Sophia noticed how women started calling his phone at odd hours. She tried to talk to him about it, but he always got angry. One day, she saw a message pop up on his phone while he was in the bathroom. "Baby, I miss you. Last night was amazing. I can't wait to see you again." Her heart stopped. Sophia tried to ignore the signs, but everything became clear when she found out that he was cheating with her best friend, Vivian. Vivian had been her closest friend since university. She was always envious of Sophia's life, though she pretended to be happy for her. One evening, Sophia decided to visit Vivian unannounced. As she entered the compound, she saw David's car parked outside. Her hands trembled as she knocked. Vivian opened the door, wearing only a bathrobe. Her eyes widened in shock. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Before she could answer, David appeared behind her, wearing only a towel. Sophia felt like the ground had disappeared under her feet. "So this is it," she whispered, her voice breaking. "My husband and my best friend." David crossed his arm. "Look, Sophia, it's not what you think." "Not what I think?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You are standing there, half naked, in my best friend's house." Vivian sighed. "Sophia, I didn't mean for this to happen." "Spare me the lies." David suddenly lost his patience. "You are acting like a child. I don't owe you any explanation. If you are not happy, then leave. Sophia's chest tightened. You are telling me to leave after everything I've done for you? David laughed. I'm tired of this marriage. You are boring. Let's get a divorce. The word hit her like a slap. She stared at him, hoping he would take it back, but he didn't. That night, David came home drunk. Sophia tried to confront him, but it ended in a serious beating. Sophia cried for days, but one day, she wiped her tears and made a plan. If David and Vivian thought they had won, they were in for a surprise. She began pulling out shares from their company secretly, setting up her own business in the background. Investors trusted her, so it wasn't hard to transfer them to her company. One afternoon, she met with Vivian at a restaurant. You know what? You can have David, she said with a smile. Vivian's eyes lit up. She was shocked. Are you serious? Sophia nodded. I'm tired of the marriage. You've always admired him, and he clearly loves you. Why fight it? I'll just sign the divorce papers so you can enjoy your life together. Vivian was overjoyed. She rushed to tell David, who immediately filed for the divorce. Sophia left with her daughter and all the company's major investors. Weeks later, Vivian and David got married, thinking they had won. But the moment Sophia left, David's business crumbled. Investors pulled out. He tried reaching out to them, but they told him that they only trusted Sophia. Then Vivian got pregnant. At first, David was so happy, but soon he started blaming her for his downfall. You're a curse, he yelled one night when he was drunk. Since I married you, everything has collapsed. It's not my fault, Vivian screamed back. In his anger, he slapped her. She fell, clutching her stomach, and blood spread across the floor. David left her on the floor for a while, but after a long time of screaming, he finally rushed her to the hospital, where she was told that she had lost the baby. That was the beginning of her suffering. She was so ashamed to walk away because people would mock her, and so she endured it. The abuse went on for a long time, making her to lose 3 pregnancies until she received the greatest shock of her life. The doctor told her that her womb was damaged and she would never be able to bear children. Vivian's world shattered. Of what use was betraying her best friend and marrying her husband? She sobbed at the corner of her room. Her parents had warned her. Everyone resented her because of what she did to Sophia. And now, she had no one to turn to. She was stuck with a jobless drunkard of a husband. One day, she came home and found her wardrobe empty. David had sold all her expensive items. She was filled with anger, and so she confronted the drunk David, and he admitted it. Vivian was unable to keep her emotions in check. She gave David a very hot slap, which led to a fight. Tragically, he pushed her down from the first floor. Unfortunately for Vivian, she lost her life. The neighbors who witnessed this called the police, and David was arrested. He was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment, where he reflected on all the wrong choices he made and regretted ever betraying Sophia. Every time he tried to reach out and apologize, Sophia never replied. Her silence was the worst punishment he received. Sophia, on the other hand, continued to prosper, and her daughter Zoe lived the best life. She built her business empire and became one of the most successful entrepreneurs. She had peace, joy, and fulfillment. She had been broken, but she came out stronger. David and Vivian had thought they had won, but in the end, they had destroyed themselves, and Sophia had won. This is the end of this story. Life is full of choices, and every choice has consequences. Sophia gave her all, but David and Vivian betrayed her. In the end, they paid the price for their greed and selfishness. Let this story be a lesson. Never take loyalty and love for granted. What you do to others will always come back to you. Thank you for listening, friends. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more amazing content, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't keep this to yourself. Share with friends and family. Let's keep these stories going. We love and appreciate you. See you in our next story. Once upon a time, there lived a woman with skin as smooth as silk and eyes that held 1,000 secrets. They called her Abeni Alagbo, the miracle beautician. Wherever Abeni went, faces brightened, wrinkles vanished, and tired skin came alive. She was loved by women, admired by young ladies, and worshipped by desperate brides-to-be. She spoke softly, she smiled often, and her heart always smelled of sweet herbs and lavender oil. No one knew her real age. No one dared to ask. But behind the youthful glow was a secret darker than night. Abeni was no ordinary woman. She had walked the earth for over 300 years, moving from village to village, carrying a black wooden trunk and a past soaked in pain. Her touch was soft but deadly. Her smile was warm but cursed. And every beautiful girl who entered her heart left with something missing. Not money, not jewelry, but something deeper. 10 years of their life. Abeni arrived in Iduani, a very peaceful village. She wore a long white buba and tied her gele high like a royal. Her skin glowed like morning dew. Within days, she had opened a little hut beside the market square. She called it Iwa Imole Beauty Hut, House of Radiance. Words spread like wildfire. See her face. She must know the secret of the gods, so I must take my daughter there before her traditional wedding. Her first customers were middle-aged women hoping to look younger. They returned praising her miracle hands. Then came the younger ones, brides, maidens, and young beautiful girls who wanted to look better. Abeni would welcome each of them with a warm smile and soft voice. "You are beautiful already," she would say. "Let me only polish what is already divine." Her hands worked like magic. She would rub her magic oil, a special massage oil made from ground snail shell, snake blood, and powdered bones, into their cheek, neck, and chest, chanting softly, "If it's on the body, it's not in the soul. Come beauty, enter me. The girls left her hut with glowing skin and light hearts. But 2 weeks later, one lost all her hair. Another developed strange wrinkle around her mouth. One began coughing blood. She died within a month. Still, nobody suspected Abeni. She always acted shocked and prayed for the victim's family. Then, she would pack her trunk and vanish until she appeared again in another town with another name. One early morning, just after cockcrow, a girl named Arike passed by the beauty hut. She had no intention of entering. Arike was different. She was 19 with skin like cocoa butter, eyes like cold water, and a quietness that made even elders respect her. She was the last granddaughter of Mojisola the Great, a priestess known all over Yoruba land. Though Mojisola had died 3 years ago, her spirit still lingered, especially around her granddaughter. Arike always wore a white ankle bead, not just for fashion, it was a charm, one that carried her grandmother's spirit. The world is not kind to beauty, Mojisola used to say. So I will follow you even after death. That day, Abeni noticed Arike. Their eyes met. Abeni's smile twitched. Her throat went dry. Her heart, which hadn't beat in over 100 years, skipped once. That beauty, she whispered, that spirit is dangerous. But Abeni was stubborn. She had drained queens, priestesses, even twins born under thunder. She feared no one, and so she set a trap. She offered free treatment to every young girl in the village. Soon, Arike's friend came to her hut, returning with faces like glass and voices full of excitement. Arike, you must try it. You think you are too spiritual to glow? Abeni's hands are magical. Arike resisted at first, but on the 8th day she agreed. And that was the day everything changed. Abeni's hut was dimly lit with oil lamps. The air smelled of bitter leaves and wet clay. Abeni greeted her sweetly. Ah, finally you are here, beautiful one. Arike sat calmly, but her eyes wandered round the hut. Her grandmother's spirit stirred within her. The white bead on her ankle paused softly. Abeni began the ritual. She rubbed the black oil across Arike's forehead and whispered her usual chants. But the moment she reached Arike's chest, thunder cracked. The oil began to boil on her fingers. The bead on Arike's ankle turned red hot. Suddenly, Abeni screamed and fell back. Ah! What is this? Who are you? The spirit of Mojisola rose. The wall shook. The herbs turned to ash. The black trunk burst open and a wild wind of trapped souls rushed out, wailing, screaming, crying. Abeni covered her ears. Ejo, Emma Binu, it was pain. It was heartbreak. They ruined me. Arike stood calmly. Speak, witch. Why do you steal from girls who did nothing to you? And Abeni began to confess. She wept, not gentle tears, but the kinds that came from centuries of buried sorrow. Her voice trembled like a cracked drum as she reached for the corner of the hut, where a dusty calabash lay hidden beneath dry raffia. Let me speak my truth, she whispered, her once glowing eyes now dull. Arike remained silent, the red-hot ankle bead, humming gently, warming but not attacking. The spirit circled the hut like shadow with no form, moaning and whispering. Tell it! Confess! Abeni hugged the calabash to her chest and began. I was once a bride, over 300 years ago in a village by the Osun River. Abeni had been a young woman, beautiful, gifted with herbs, and in love with a hunter named Akinlolu. They had grown together like twin yams vine. The wedding day was set. Her joy was endless. But days before the wedding, Akinlolu disappeared into the forest and never returned. They said a leopard took him, but it wasn't a leopard. Tears streamed down her face. It was the princess, a daughter of their laughing, who had seen Akinlolu and wanted him for herself. Akinlolu was the only man who had ever refused the princess because of her beauty. And because of this, everyone in the village hated Akinlolu because they worshipped the princess like a goddess. So they accused Akinlolu of stealing royal charms and sentenced him to death without trial. I begged, I wept, I stripped myself bare at the palace gate. But they laughed at me and said, "Who dare refuse the most beautiful girl in our village? Who dare reject the hand of the princess?" After burying her love with her own hands, Abeni wandered the forest, mad with grief. That was when she found the sacred pool of Yemoja Ajija, the goddess of beauty, pain and vengeance. There, under the blood moon, Abeni offered her body and soul to the river goddess. Take my beauty and give me strength. Take my years and give me vengeance. Take my womb and make me immortal, so I can wipe out the entire village for what they did to Akinlolu. Yemojo Ajija appeared, not as a woman, but as a water that bled. "You shall have your wish," the water whispered. "But to stay ageless, you must feed me with what was stolen from you: youth, beauty, joy." So began her curse. Every 10 years, Abeni had to drain life from 10 maidens to stay alive. And each girl must come willingly. They must desire beauty before I take it. The spirit screamed louder now, then voices rising in pain. "You stole us, you lied, you took our tomorrows." Arike's eyes flashed. "And you think your pain justifies this evil? You think sorrow gives you permission to destroy others?" Abeni bowed her head. "I was weak. Then I became angry, and now I am empty." Suddenly, the white bead on Arike's ankle burst into flames. Her grandmother's spirit rose to its full height, her eyes like lightning. "Abeni Alagbo, your time has ended. No more blood, no more beauty, no more lies." The spirits closed in. Abeni screamed and clawed at her face. Her buba turned from the inside out. Her smooth skin cracked like dry harmattan clay. The black trunk, the cursed box, sucked in wind and ash. One by one, the stolen years returned to the air. The girls who had withered, the women who had died, their soul flew upwards in light. "Eshe, thank you," they whispered as they vanished. When the smoke cleared, all that remained of Abeni was a pile of grey ash and her golden comb. Arike picked up the comb and placed it in the calabash. Then she spoke softly. May your soul find peace in a place beyond beauty. She stepped out of the hut. The people of Idoani gathered around, confused by the thunder and wind. And there, in the heart of the market square, Iwa Imole Beauty Hut collapsed into dust. No one ever saw Abeni again. But some say, on certain nights when the moon is full, a woman with silk skin and lavender scent walks past river banks, weeping. After Abeni's fall, Arike inherited the hut's land and reopened it, not as a beauty house, but as a place for healing. She used her grandmother's herbs and divine wisdom to restore those who had been harmed by vanity and deceit. She called it Itojokan, which means healing of the soul. And the girls came, not for beauty, but for peace. This is the end of this story. What lesson did you take from it? Do you believe things like this still exist in our world today? Let's talk in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you are watching from. And if this story touched you in any way, please share it with someone. You never know who might need to hear it. We love and appreciate you. See you in our next story. Some rich men pay girls to entertain their friends at private parties. You don't have to do anything extreme. Just look pretty, sit with them, drink, and laugh. They spray you cash. If you're lucky, one of them might pick interest in you. 2 nights later, she found herself in a hotel room with 6 other girls, wearing a borrowed dress and makeup so heavy she could barely recognize herself. Chioma sat on a thin mattress in a cramped hostel room, staring at the cracked ceiling. The fan barely moved, its weak rotations doing little to fight the heat. Her stomach growled, a reminder that she had skipped lunch again. She glanced at her phone, scrolling through Instagram, her fingers trembling slightly. Her feed was flooded with pictures of Uniport's hottest slay queens. Girls with impossibly tiny waists, round hips, and faces sculpted to perfection. They flaunted designer bags, luxury cars, and expensive trips to Dubai. Their caption filled with motivational quotes about hard work and manifesting success. Chioma scoffed. Hard work? Which hard work? She knew the truth. These girls had one thing in common. They all had rich men funding their lifestyles. She looked down at her faded dress, the only decent outfit she had left. Her roommate Amara had already abandoned her for richer friends. Even some lecturers mocked her appearance, throwing shade at her in class when they saw her outdated Nokia phone. Her only real friend was Ezine, sweet, simple Ezine, who somehow managed to be content with life. But Chioma didn't want contentment. She wanted wealth, luxury, and power. Chioma, you need to stop envying these girls. Ezine had told her that morning as they walked to class. This social media life isn't real. Chioma had rolled her eyes, then explained how a girl who just got admission last year is driving a Mercedes. Ezine sighed, you know how, but Chioma was tired of knowing without experiencing. That night, she lay awake thinking, What if I find a sugar daddy? She wouldn't have to struggle anymore. No more hunger, no more monkery, just a few outings, some sweet words, and she could be driving the latest Benz like the others. A slow smile spread across her lips. She then made up her mind. Chioma did not waste any time. She reached out to Sandra, one of the top slay queens on campus. Sandra was everything she wanted to be. Tall, curvy, and effortlessly elegant. She barely attended lectures, yet she always had money. After 3 days of pleading, Sandra agreed to introduce her to someone. You have to look the part though, Sandra said, eyeing Chioma's rough edges with mild disgust. Fix your hair, get some new clothes, and make yourself attractive. No big man wants a local girl. Chioma's heart sank. How could she afford a makeover when she could barely afford food? Sandra smirked as if she read her thoughts. There is a way you can get the money. You just have to be bold. Chioma was desperate enough to ask how. Sandra leaned in, lowering her voice. Have you heard of Walk and Chop? Chioma shook her head. Sandra chuckled. Some rich men pay girls to entertain their friends at private parties. You don't have to do anything extreme. Just look pretty, sit with them, drink and laugh. They spray you cash. If you're lucky, one of them might pick interest in you. 2 nights later, she found herself in a hotel room with 6 other girls, wearing a borrowed dress and makeup so heavy she could barely recognize herself. The music was loud, the air thick with alcohol and cigar smoke. Middle-aged men, some old enough to be her father, watched them like predators. Chioma forced a smile as one of them grabbed her waist. This was her entry into the world of luxury. But she had no idea what she was truly signing up for. Within weeks, Chioma transformed. Her new uncle, Chief Odogu, was a wealthy businessman in his 50s. He showered her with money, bought her an iPhone, and even got her a small car. She felt invisible. She barely attended lectures anymore. Who needed a degree when she had wealth at her fingertips? But there was one problem, Ezine. Chioma, what are you doing? Ezine's voice trembled with frustration. This isn't you. Chioma scoffed, flipping her new Peruvian hair. Ezine, wake up. You think I'll waste my life struggling when there's an easy way? Ezine's eyes darkened with hurt. So you think selling yourself is easier? Do you even know who these men are? Chioma rolled her eyes. Please, spare me the lectures. That was the last real conversation they had. Ezine walked away and Chioma didn't stop her. She had no idea that she had just lost the only real friend she had. Chief Odogu was generous but controlling. He dictated what she wore, who she spoke to, where she went, and even asked Chioma to get a BBL, which she did. Then came the late night calls, the odd requests, and the strange gatherings. One night, he invited her to a special meeting. She arrived at a secluded mansion and found other girls there, all neighbors, all dressed in red. The air smelled of incense and something metallic, like blood. She felt uneasy. Then the ritual began. Chioma's words spun. The sacrifices, the airy chants, and the whispered warnings. She was in too deep, and there was no way out. Chioma sat stiffly in the dimly lit mansion, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was filled with men in flowing white robes, their faces hidden behind their dark sunglasses. A large clay pot sat in the center, emitting thick, perfumed smoke that made her dizzy. Other girls were there too, some trembling, some looking early calm. Chief Odogu's voice was smooth as he whispered in her ears, "You are part of the family now, Choma. You will never lack." She wanted to run. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to leave. But how could she? Odogu had bought her phone, her car, and even paid for her rent. She wasn't stupid. She knew money came at a price. Still, she hadn't expected this. A man in red robes stepped forward. "To secure your wealth, you must take an oath." Choma's throat went dry. What kind of oath?" The man smiled, revealing stained teeth. "A simple one. Drink from the pot, swear loyalty, and your riches will multiply." Choma's paws raised. She looked at the other girls. Some were sipping the dark liquid obediently. Others hesitated. One girl, a pretty light-skinned lady in a tight dress, refused. "I am not drinking anything." Before Choma could blink, two hefty men grabbed the girl. "Take her outside," Odogu ordered. Choma did not know what happened to the girl, but the muffled scream that followed sent chills down her spine. She turned back to the pot. "This is the prize." With shaking hands, she picked up the cup and drank. The warm, bitter liquid burned down her throat, and in that moment, she knew she could never live this life. Choma's life changed overnight. Money poured into her accounts. Expensive clothes, luxury vacations, a brand new apartment. She had it all, but something wasn't right. She started having nightmares. Strange shadows flickered in her room at night. Sometimes she would wake up gasping for breath, feeling invisible hands pressing down on her chest. The worst part, people around her started dying. One of the girls from the mansion was found dead in her hostel. Her body dried up like an old leaf. Another girl went missing after a private trip to Dubai. Choma tried to push away the fear. Maybe it's just coincidence, until Amara, the same roommate who had abandoned her, was found dead in her car. Her tongue had been cut out. The police called it a robbery. Choma knew better. She confronted Sandra, the same girl who had introduced her to Odogu. "Sandra, what is happening? Why are people dying?" Sandra just gave a chilly smile. "You asked for money, didn't you?" Choma's stomach twisted. That was when she realized that she had gotten herself into a deep mess. One evening, Choma's phone rang. It was Chief Odogu. "Come to the mansion now." Her hands shook as she picked up her car keys. Something didn't feel right. When she arrived, she saw them, the men in white robes, standing in a circle. And in the center of the room, bound and gagged, was Ezine. Choma's blood turned to ice. "No, no, 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 no," she whispered, stepping back. Chief Odogu smiled. "Choma, you are rising fast, but wealth comes at a cost." Ezine's terrified eyes met hers, pleading silently. Choma's mind screamed. "No, she's innocent. She has nothing to do with this." Odogu stepped closer. "You want to be wealthy, don't you? Then make your first sacrifice." A long curved dagger was placed in her hands. Choma shook her head violently. "I can't. I can't." Odogu's voice was cold. "If you don't, you will take her place." The room spun. Tears ran down Edine's cheek. Choma's hands trembled. She thought about the money, the fame, the luxury. Then she thought about their childhood. About how Ezine had always been there for her. Her heart cracked open. With a scream, she turned the knife on Odogu. The room erupted in chaos. Men lunged at her. She slashed wildly, adrenaline fueling her desperation. Ezine screamed, struggling against her restraint. Chioma fought her way to her best friend, cutting the ropes binding her. "Run!" she gasped. Ezine did not hesitate. They bolted out of the mansion. The angry shouts of the cultists echoing behind them. They didn't stop running until they reached the university gates. Chioma's body convulsed violently as she collapsed at the gates. Chioma, Ezine screamed, catching her before she could hit the ground. Her skin felt like burning coal, her breath shallow. Students gathered around, murmuring in confusion. Some took videos, others whispering, "Isn't that Chioma the Slay Queen?" Ezine did not care. She flagged down a taxi and rushed her to the school clinic. But the doctors were baffled. "She doesn't have malaria, typhoid, or any infection we could detect," one said, shaking his head. "It's almost like something is eating her from the inside." Days passed and the doctors were still unable to detect what was wrong with her. Chioma barely spoke. Some nights, she would wake up screaming, clutching her chest. Other times, she would stare blankly at the ceiling, whispering names Ezine did not recognize. Ezine took her home, determined to save her best friend. For weeks, she carried Chioma from one hospital to another, one prayer house to the next. But no matter what they did, Chioma withered away. Her once glowing skin turned dry and ashy. Her beautiful eyes sunk deep into their sockets. She no longer had the strength to walk. Ezine begged, cried, prayed, but nothing changed. One evening, as Chioma lay on the tin mattress in Ezine's small apartment, she reached for her friend's hand. Ezine held it tightly, hot tears running down her cheek. "I'm sorry," Chioma whispered. "I should have listened to you." Ezine sobbed. "Don't say that, you'll be okay." Chioma gave a weak smile. "No, I won't." A tear rolled down her soaking cheek. "Ezine, if you ever see any girl walking the same path I did, please warn her." Ezine's eyes were filled with tears. Chioma took a deep breath. Then, with a final sigh, she was gone. Ezine buried Chioma with the little money she had. She cried for weeks, haunted by the memories of their childhood, the days before greed poisoned their friendship. But life moved on. Ezine graduated with first-class honors and got a good job in a reputable firm. She built a decent life, one she and Chioma had once dreamed of together. Yet, despite her success, a part of her remained broken. Every time she scrolled through social media and saw young girls chasing lottery, she felt a deep ache in her chest. One evening, as she left her office, she overheard two female interns gossiping. "I swear, if I find a rich man, I will never work a day in my life. Forget that one, these Uniport slay queens are the real bosses. Just one Dubai trip and you are made for life." Ezine's stomach twisted. She turned to face them. "Do you know what happened in Dubai?" The girls looked startled. "Who are you?" one asked. Ezine stared at them. The memory of Chioma's last words echoing in her mind. "If you ever see any girl walking the same path I did, warn her." She took a deep breath. "My name is Ezine and I have a story to tell you." Ezine narrated Chioma's ordeal to them and warned them about the repercussion of their choices. When they heard this, their mouths were open in shock, and they realized that not everything that was posted on social media was true. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is that greed blinds, materialism destroys, and the price of vanity is often too high to pay. Choose contentment over shortcuts. If you see someone on the wrong path, don't stay silent, speak up, you might save a life. Thank you for listening, friends. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more amazing content, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't keep this to yourself. Share with friends and family. Let's keep these stories going. We love and appreciate you. See you in our next story. Everything stopped. The heaviness left. The whispers ended. And the cold vanished. She jumped up, breathing fast like someone who just escaped death. She ran to switch on the lights. She searched the room. There was nothing, nobody, and the bed was empty. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Chiamaka. She was a very poor girl who had a friend named Cynthia. Chiamaka sat on the floor of Cynthia's small self-contained room in Agege, Lagos. Sweat rolled down her back as she found herself with an empty Indomie carton. Life was hard. She looked at Cynthia, who was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone and chewing groundnuts. Tony, Cynthia's boyfriend, lay shirtless beside her, snoring. Chiamaka, I won't tell you any lies, Cynthia said finally, not looking up from her phone. You will need to find where you will stay. Tony is always in my house, and this place is too small for the three of us. Chiamaka's chest tightened. So you want me to go where? Anywhere you can manage, Cynthia said without emotion. Don't you have any friend or cousin in this Lagos? No, you are the only one I know, Chiamaka said softly. That night, Chiamaka could not sleep. She turned and twisted on the floor, thinking about her life. She had come to Lagos to look for work and a better life, but things had been rough. She did small jobs, washing clothes, helping people in the shop, but it was not enough to rent a place. Even the cheapest rent in Agege was beyond her reach. The next afternoon, while using the computer at the cyber cafe, she saw a strange post on Facebook. If you are struggling with accommodation, there are buildings in some areas of Lagos you can occupy for up to 1 year. Some house owners are dead with no one to claim the buildings, and others have relocated abroad. The houses are there waiting. Chiamaka's eyes widened. Her chest beat fast. She took a photo of the post and called the number. A man with a deep voice answered. Yes, it's real, he said. Go to Olushola Crescent, behind the old Anglican church in Agege. There is a white building. Ask for Mrs. Titi Adeyinka. Without thinking too much, Chiamaka packed her small bag and headed out. The road to Olushola Crescent was lonely. The houses there were old and scattered. Some looked abandoned. She felt scared, but she kept going. Then she saw it, a white building. It stood tall like a castle, 3 floors with shiny glass windows and flowers at the gate. The paint looked fresh. The compound was clean. There was even a fountain at the center. Chiamaka's mouth hung open. "This is the work of God," she whispered. She walked to the gate and knocked. A few minutes later, the gate slowly opened with a creaking sound. A man in black uniform stood there, his eyes red and tired. "I'm looking for Mrs. Titi Adeyinka," Chiamaka said. The gateman looked at her for a long time before nodding and stepping outside. "Enter," he said. Inside the compound, everything was quiet. Too quiet, but the place was beautiful. She saw green grass, trimmed flowers, and a gardener watering the plants. The man did not greet her. He looked like someone who had not slept for days. Then the front door opened. A fair, elegant woman with bright eyes and curly hair smiled at her. "You must be the girl," she said warmly. "I'm Mrs. Titi Adeyinka. Come in, my dear." Chiamaka followed her in. The living room was like a hotel. Big chairs, soft carpet, big TV. The air smelled of vanilla and rose. "Sit down, you must be tired," Mrs. Titi said. "I cooked jollof rice. Come and eat first." Chiamaka could not believe her luck. She ate and licked her fingers. "There's a room upstairs. It's yours. You don't need to pay anything for now. Just help us clean sometimes," Mrs. Titi smiled. When Chiamaka entered the room, she gasped. A big bed, dressing mirror, wardrobe, air conditioner, everything was there. She knelt down. "God, thank you. You finally remember me." Later that evening, she met the two maids. They wore black gowns and did not smile. They walked like people that had no joy. When she greeted them, they just nodded without talking. The gardener too did not talk much. He looked sick and tired, but he walked like a robot. Even the gateman, he just stared at nothing all day. Chiamaka noticed all these, but she waved it off. Some rich people are like this, she told herself. It's only the madam that is friendly. Others are just workers. She stretched on her new bed, closed her eyes and smiled. She had no idea whose house she was in. Later that day, she met Mr. Adeyinka, a very quiet man, tall, dark-skinned, always smiling like someone that knew a deep secret. He hardly talked, but the first time he saw Chiamaka, he came close and looked into her eyes. "Do you want to stay in this house?" he asked, still smiling. Chiamaka nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I really want to stay here." The moment she said it, something strange happened. One of the maids, the slim one with long neck, was holding a hot kettle. As soon as Chiamaka gave her answer, the kettle cover fell from her hand and hit the floor. Her eyes were wide like someone that saw a ghost. "I'm sorry, madam," she said quickly and picked the cover. Mr. Adeyinka did not say anything. He just smiled again and walked away slowly like he was floating. Chiamaka shook her head. These rich people, their workers are not stable. Mrs. Titi Adeyinka, as usual, was very kind. She gave Chiamaka beautiful clothes, lace, ankara, designer tops, and told her to take anything she liked, saying, "You're part of this family now." She cooked fresh meals every day. From vegetable soup, egusi soup, jollof rice, spaghetti with chicken, Chiamaka ate and grew fresh. She stopped going out to hustle. She told herself that this was her breakthrough and her suffering was over. But then the night came. The first time it happened, it was around midnight. Chiamaka had slept early because of food and comfort. Her room was cold with AC. The bedsheet was soft like foam bread. But as the clock ticked past 12, her eyes suddenly opened. She couldn't move. Her chest felt heavy. It was like someone was laying on top of her. Another person was by her side. She could feel them. She couldn't see them. She couldn't scream. She couldn't even open her mouth. Her hands were stiff. Her legs were frozen. She struggled and cried in her heart. Then the AC, which was cold before, became very hot like fire. The air was heavy. Her skin started to sweat. Her breath became short. Then eventually, it changed again. The heat disappeared, and suddenly the room became ice cold. The type of cold that enters bones. Her teeth started shaking and her body trembling. She could hear whispers, low whispers, voices she couldn't understand. She wanted to close her eyes, but they were already closed. She wanted to wake up, but she wasn't even sleeping. Then, just like that, at exactly 6 a.m., everything stopped. The heaviness left, the whispers ended, and the cold vanished. She jumped up, breathing fast like someone who just escaped death. She ran to switch on the lights. She searched the room. There was nothing, nobody, and the bed was empty. She looked under the bed, nothing. She opened the wardrobe, nothing. She looked at the AC, it was off. Chiamaka sat on the floor holding her knees. Her heart was beating fast. What just happened? She wanted to believe it was a dream. She convinced herself it was nothing serious. Maybe it's sleep paralysis. People always complain of those things. That morning, when she came out, Mrs. Titi was already waiting at the dining table with fresh pepper soup and rice. "My dear, you look tired," she said, smiling sweetly. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, ma. I just had one funny dream." Mrs. Titi laughed softly. "Dreams are nothing. Come and eat." She ate quietly. The maid passed by with dead faces. The gardener walked by slowly with his head down. Nobody asked her about the night. Nobody asked about the dream or said anything strange. Mrs. Titi gave her a new dress that afternoon, a white dress and silver bead. It looked like a wedding dress. "You deserve good things," she said. That night, Chiamaka was afraid to sleep. But eventually sleep came, and so did the nightmare. The nightmare did not stop. Every night was worse than the previous. Sometimes it started at midnight. Other times, it started earlier. Some nights, hands held her down. Cold hands, heavy hands, hands without flesh. Other nights, she would hear laughter, loud, wicked laughter, inside her room. There were nights she woke up with scratched mark on her arm and legs. One night, she saw blood dripping from her ceiling. She screamed and ran to open the door, but it wouldn't open. The door remained locked till morning, and by then, the blood had vanished. Chiamaka was no longer herself. Her skin became pale. Her eyes lost color. She was always shaking, always afraid of nightfall. One afternoon, she gathered courage and spoke to Mrs. Titi. "Auntie, I don't know how to say this, but strange things happen to me at night. I see things, I feel things. Sometimes I can't move, I can't scream. It's like I'm dying and Mrs. Titi laughed lightly, cutting her off. It's only dreams, my dear. This house is very peaceful. You are probably tired or stressed. She placed her hand on Chiamaka's shoulders and smiled. But that smile did not reach her eyes. Chiamaka tried to believe her until something strange happened and changed everything. One afternoon, she stood in the hallway fixing her scarf in front of a large mirror. As she adjusted the scarf, she noticed something strange. Her reflection was clear in the mirror. One of the maids passed behind her. Her reflection showed too. But then, Mrs. Titi walked past. There was nothing, no reflection. She froze, her heart jumped. She blinked and looked again, still nothing. Just an empty space where Mrs. Titi should have been. She waited till Mr. Adenka came downstairs, holding his usual cup of tea. She watched him in the mirror. Nothing. The mirror was empty. But she could see him standing behind her. That was the day she knew they were not alive. Chiamaka felt cold all over her body. She ran into her room and locked the door. She wanted to scream, cry, and disappear. I need to leave, she whispered to herself. But leaving was not easy. The next morning, she packed her small bag and walked out of her room. The gate was open. The gardener was not there. She ran. But before she could get to the gate, a strong wind pushed her back so hard she fell and hit her head. When she woke up, she was back in her room. The bag was beside her. She didn't know how she returned. She tried again 2 days later. This time, she ran past the gate. She made it to the road. She was just about to enter a passing keke when a car appeared from nowhere and almost crushed her. She jumped back. The keke disappeared. The road was empty again. She turned back and the gate of the house was open. She was being pulled back as if something was dragging her from inside her chest. She screamed, but no sound came out. She woke up in her room again. Same way, same bag, with same fear. She knew she couldn't do it alone. She looked for one of the maids, the youngest one with a scar on her cheek. She cornered her in the kitchen. Please, she whispered, I want to leave. What is going on in this house? Please help me. The girl looked around carefully. Tears filled her eyes immediately. She leaned forward and whispered, they will never let you leave. Her eyes cracked. Pain filled her face. They trapped us here. We are stuck. Even in death, we serve them. Wait, death? You are death too? But the girl only shook her head and wiped her tears with the corner of her wrapper. She walked away fast, like someone who had said too much. Chiamaka could not believe what she just heard. The next day when she woke up in the morning, the room felt colder. Her body was shaking from the latest nightmare. Her lips were dried. She hadn't slept well in days. The whispers no longer waited till midnight. They came anytime, even in daylight. But that morning was different. When she stepped out of her room, her white dress was gone, so were her fancy clothes. On the floor was a folded black gown and a scarf, just like what the maids wore. She stared at it, her heart pounding. No, this can't be. Downstairs, the long table was empty. No pepper soup, no fruit juice. No madam waiting with a warm smile, only silence. She walked slowly to the kitchen and found the two maids standing at the sink, their backs to her. One of them turned. It was the scarred maid. She looked at Chiamaka with tired eyes and whispered, "Welcome." That was when the truth hit her. She had been demoted to servant. Mrs. Titi came in later that day. She was no longer smiling. Her face was blank. Her eyes were cold. "I hope you slept well," she said in a flat voice. "Your duty starts today. The floor needs mopping." Chiamaka froze. "Ma, but..." The woman raised her hand. "No questions. You are not a guest here. You live here now. This is your home forever. Accept it." Chiamaka's hands trembled. "You promised me a room and a life. You said I was part of the family." Mrs. Titi stepped closer. Her perfume now replaced with the scent of old wood and ash. "You are part of the family, just like the others." She pointed at the gardener outside. He was bent over, trimming already perfect grass with a blunt tool, his back hunched from exhaustion. She turned to the maids. "Do you know how they got here? Just like you, hungry, hopeless, looking for shelter. We gave them everything, then they tried to leave. So now they serve." Chiamaka shook her head. "I'm not staying. I'll run again." Mrs. Titi smiled for the first time. "You already did twice. And where did you wake up?" Immediately Chiamaka heard this, she realized that she was responsible for what was happening to her. Later that evening, as she scrubbed the corridor with trembling hands, the scarred maid knelt down beside her and whispered, "We all came the same way. Some in 2001, some 2008, and some just 2 years ago. 10 doesn't move here. That's why you are not aging." Chiamaka was shocked. 2001? The maid nodded. "I've been here for 24 years. They said I went missing. My mother still looks for me." "The gate," Chiamaka whispered. "It opens, but it only leads back inside. The world has moved on. Even if you escape, you won't be the same. Your soul is tied to this house." Chiamaka's head turned. She looked outside and saw the gardener silently crying as he swept already swept sand. His fingers were bleeding. They were trapped souls in uniform. People who had been declared missing for years. That night, Chiamaka was not allowed to sleep in her usual room. She was moved to a small back room. It was damp with a hard floor and no light. The air was heavy. Flies were buzzing around, and the AC did not reach there. She lay at the corner of the room, shaking, but sleep did not come. Instead, the spirit returned, more cruel than before. She felt fingers clawing her legs. She heard heavy breathing above her head. She screamed, but no one came. The next morning, Mrs. Titi visited her again. "You will be fine," she said calmly. "One day you will stop fighting like the others." She leaned forward and whispered into Chiamaka's ears, "There is no freedom here. The earlier you accept it, the easier it gets." Then she walked away. Chiamaka lay there, tears soaking her thin pillow. She had entered into Olushola Crescent looking for peace. Now she had joined the lost ones, the forgotten souls that served an eternal curse. The nightmare continued for days, and Chiamaka could not sleep because the spirit would not let her. Each time she closed her eyes, something touched her. Cold, crawling things that whispered in language no human could speak. One night, she heard a child giggling under her bed, only to find bloody footprints on the floor. Another night, fingers dragged through her scalp as though searching for her soul. She screamed and begged for mercy. but no one ever came. She was no longer Chiamaka the guest. She was not Chiamaka the prisoner. On one particular night, the torment was worse. As the clock struck midnight, her room was filled with shadows that moved without light. Her blanket lifted on its own. A bony hand reached from beneath her mat. She ran to the corner and wept uncontrollably. "Why me?" she cried. "Why did I come here? Why didn't I just sleep under the bridge? Why?" Suddenly, everything went still. There was no whisper, no cold air, just silence. Then she heard a voice, a soft, calm, familiar voice, but not human. "Turn to me, my child, and I will set you free." Her crying stopped instantly. She looked around the dark room with her eyes wide open, but she saw nothing. But her heart felt it, a warmth in the midst of the cold, a flicker of light in her soul. Then, like a flood, memories returned. Then she remembered her old childhood church and her mother's lovely voice singing praises. She remembered holding her Bible close even to school. She once believed God could do anything, but life happened. Poverty struck. Her father died on the expressway when a truck lost its brake. Her mother begged, prayed and cried, yet nothing happened. They went to church every Sunday. Still, the landlord evicted them. She started to wonder, where is this God? Why does he watch people suffer? Why do good people die and wicked ones succeed? By the time she arrived in Lagos, she had tossed her Bible into the bin at Jibowu Park. "I don't need a God who lets people suffer," she had said. But now she was face to face with hell. And in the darkest moment, that voice came. She knelt down on the floor with her hands trembling. "God," she whispered, "I don't even know if you are still listening. I left you, I denied you, and I doubted you." Tears rolled down her cheek. "But if you are real, if you still want me, help me. I can't do this alone." She bowed her head and cried again. This time not from fear, but from brokenness. Then she said something she hadn't said in years. "In Jesus' name, amen." Immediately the heart reacted, the walls vibrated, the light in the corridor flickered violently. In the master's bedroom, Mr. Adenka sat up, his face darkened by rage. "She's praying," he growled. She called him. His wife hissed, her skin bubbling with heat. "We must stop her tonight." From the garden, the ground cracked open and three twisted smoky creatures rose. They had long fingers and mouths that opened too wide. Their bodies moved like oil in water. They hissed and floated towards the servants' quarters. Inside, Chiamaka continued praying. She had no Bible, no candle, just her voice and her faith. "God, I don't even know how to fight spirits, but you do. Please protect me." As the creatures reached her door, a wave of invisible light passed through the room. They shrieked and stopped. One slammed into the door, but something threw it backward like a rag. Another tried crawling through the window and burst into ashes. The third hovered, watching her, screeching as it melted into smoke. Inside the room, Chiamaka did not see it. She just kept praying. "No weapon formed against me shall prosper. He that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. Lord, cover me with the blood of Jesus." She felt peace, real peace. For the first time, she entered into the house. In the main sitting room, every mirror shattered at once. The chandelier swung widely. Plates flew. Windows cracked. Mrs. Titi screamed as fire licked the edge of her gown. She's ruining everything. She's awakening power we buried, Mr. Adenka yelled. But they couldn't touch her, not anymore. As the night faded and the sight of light of dawn touched the compound, a glow surrounded the servants' room. The evil had tried and failed. Chiamaka stepped outside barefoot, her hair wild, her face stained with tears and dust, but her eyes were alive. She called the maids, the gardener, and the gateman one by one, and they came. All of them weak, tired, and ghostly in appearance, like people who had forgotten what hope looked like. They gathered in a circle around her. Something happened last night, Chiamaka began, her voice steady. The spirits came for me, but they couldn't enter. The scared mates blinked. Why? Because I turned to God, she said, and he answered. They looked at one another confused. I thought God had forgotten us. I thought this place was beyond him. Another said, no, Chiamaka said firmly. That's what they made us believe. But they lied. God never left. We did. She looked around at their tired faces. But we can go back to him right now. She took a deep breath. Let us fast and pray. Let's join hands and pray to the one who created heaven and earth. If he saved me last night, he can save all of us. But we must believe. They held hands and were about to begin when a sound echoed through the compound. Scraping, dragging, and mourning. Mrs. Titi crawled from the shadow of the main house. Her skin now blackened, cracked, and covered in burns. Smoke trailed behind her. Her once beautiful hair was now grey and falling out in patches. Her voice was weak and trembling. Stop! Stop it! Please! They all stepped back. She groaned, coughing up ashes. Leave now, she said. The gate is open. You can go. Just don't pray again. Please, I beg you. The fire, it burns. Chiamaka stepped forward. You are only saying that because you know what will happen if we keep praying. Mrs. Titi's eyes widened in terror. The world, it's killing us. We're already fading. Please, Chiamaka, have mercy. One of the maids turned to run with hope on her face. But Chiamaka shouted, Stop! Everyone froze. This is not the time to run. This is the time to finish it. Once and for all. Not just for us, but for every soul they've ever trapped. She turned to the others. Let's pray. They joined hands. Chiamaka began. In the name of Jesus, every force holding us bound, we command you, let us go. The scared maid whispered, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. The gardener began to cry, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The gateman added, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Then something supernatural happened. Scriptures begin to pour out of their mouths like fire. Not just words, but glowing words that filled the air with light. The ground shook. Mr. Adenka stumbled out of the first floor. His suit turned. His face melted like wax. He screamed as the light touched him. Ah! What is this? Stop! Stop! Flame rose around his feet. His hand blistered. The words of prayer were cutting through him like swords. Mrs. Titi screamed and tried to crawl back inside the house, but a blast of fire threw her against the wall. Our Father who art in heaven, let God arise and let his enemies be scattered. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. The Adenkas wailed. Their body twisted. their bones cracked. They clutched their chests as chains burst from their bodies, snapping loudly and melting into the ground. We bind you by the blood of Jesus. Loose us and let us go. They gave one final scream, one long, loud, and full of terror, and then, boom, they vanished into thin air, and nothing remained of them. Before they knew what was happening, the house, like a building made of only sand, collapsed. First the roof and then the walls. The gate vanished into thin air. The fountain dried up instantly, and birds began to sing. For the first time in decades, sunlight touched the soil. They all stood still. Finally, they were free. Then, someone began to sing a soft Igbo worship song. Another joined. Soon, all of them were singing, crying, clapping, praising God with hands lifted to the sky. The scarred maid fell to her knees and screamed, "I'm free." The gateman hugged the gardener. The gardener wept like a child. And Chiamaka, she lifted her hands to heaven and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for remembering me." The day they walked out of the house, the world looked different. The sky was bluer and the air was lighter. The silence that once surrounded the street was broken by joyful sound of freedom. Chiamaka, the maid, the gardener and the gateman stood for a moment, looking back at the empty land where the house once stood. A house that had devoured so many. It was gone forever. They didn't speak much that day. They didn't need to. They held hands and walked away. They each returned to their family. After years of being missing, tears flowed. Mothers cried. Siblings shouted in shock. Some relatives had given up and even done funerals. But now they were back alive, though not the same. But they were free and they were grateful. The first thing they did together was go for deliverance. For 3 days, they fasted and prayed again. This time not out of fear, but out of gratitude. They gave their lives completely to Christ. They started attending church. They were baptized, their old selves buried in water and new life rising from it. Chiamaka started all over. She found herself back in the same city that almost destroyed her. But this time, she was not alone. She walked with God. She studied her Bible. She prayed daily. She no longer chased shortcuts, but trusted God. One day, while helping at a church outreach, someone handed her a flyer for a company looking for volunteers. She filled it, not expecting much. 2 weeks later, she got a call. When she arrived at the office, the manager looked up and said, "Your face, I don't know why, but I feel led to help you." He offered her a full-time job with accommodation and benefits for a position she never applied for. Chiamaka was so happy and she knew that was God. On weekends, Chiamaka would walk through busy streets, parks and bus stops, handing out flyers, praying with strangers and telling her story. "I lived in a haunted house. Spirits tormented me. But when I turned to God, everything changed." People listened, others cried. A lot of people returned to God because of her testimony. She became known as the girl who escaped the haunted house, not for fame, but for impact. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is, no matter how deep the darkness, God is still the light. When life becomes overwhelming and you feel trapped, don't run from God. Run to Him. People may fail, money may disappoint, and shortcuts may destroy. But God never forsakes those who turn to Him. Even when it feels like He's silent, He's working behind the scenes. Trust Him, seek Him, call on His name. Only God can truly deliver and give lasting peace. I pray for every person listening to this story, especially those who feel trapped in situations they can't explain or escape. Father, please remind them that you are near. Let your light break through their darkness, strengthen their faith, give them peace where there is torment, and hope where there is despair. Let them experience your power like Chiamaka did. And when they turn to you, Lord, set them free completely. In Jesus' name, amen. If this story touched your heart, remember, only God can truly save and set us free. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below. Tell us what you learned or where you are watching from. Share this video to help someone else find hope. Stay blessed, stay strong, and always trust God. And do not forget, we love and appreciate you. See you in our next story.